Welcome back from the commercial break. Yeah, this is Smart 24 TV. We drive business, and our discussion remains on analyzing economic policies. And we land on the sector of education to be a great contributory factor if we are to have economic growth in our country. Yeah, one by names Joseph L. From the point of view through the International Labour Organization 215, he talked about the question or the pros and cons of minimum wage and gross domestic product. He states that economic theory suggests that the macroeconomic effect of minimum wage increase on gross domestic product is ambiguous. He wasn't convinced on whether if we can have a certain level of maybe salary enhancement, minimum wage, whether it can lead to economic growth. And while reflecting to the economic growth of Uganda, and to the dear guests as I will be coming to Dr. Lawrence Muganga, we are referring also to a number of challenges. This is what I would have referred as the SWOT analysis, analyzing as well while we are, appreciating the need of innovative education and education that Uganda deserves, would like to plead in this talk show for some of our rural Ugandans, especially rural-based Ugandans, the young ones who are going through primary schools. I landed on a clip, I will share it with you, where in one of the schools in Western Uganda, a young child was in this universal primary education. I'm not a critic of it, but it's a serious gap of which we think the government has to rise up a quick, act for quick action over that. So there was, floods, they entered into the classroom, and these children, I believe you were able to see that.
Not bricks.
Yes, they were seated on bricks. It was too painful for me.
But is it from Uganda?
It is Uganda. It is reality. There are other cases even it happened in Sinjiro, and the classrooms, they didn't have the windows, they didn't have the doors, and then the building, it had fallen down. And these places, they have members of parliament. I'm not bashing out the role you do, members of parliament, but in terms of allocating our resources to where it matters, I do mind about that child because maybe a future VC of Victoria University. Correct. Or a minister. I do think as we try to support, policymakers to have a Uganda to support education and looking at education that Uganda deserves, you cannot study from that environment and you think that really we get out better results. There are some of other challenges we would like to be tackling one-on-one. Whereas we look at different roles played by stakeholders and the kind of the innovations that we need, but a lot, that's why I was talking to Mr. Conrad, a lot is desirable to be done and with quick intervention. Doctor, even when we are talking about our students whom we are going to admit as many as possible, and those teachers, there is a question of the digital equipments, the laptops and so forth, is still a challenge. Is still a challenge, and yet it can be solved. Kindly take us through that because we want to move to the next level and we improve the socio-economic livelihoods of our people.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joseph.
Yes, sir.
And giving us that metaphor, which is really tear-causing and sad to have someone have to learn while seated on bricks and below them there is water flowing. It's sad. But it's Conan who really clearly indicated that what we need today, there's a little bit of urgency for us to even tweak our policies, to entertain flexibility of things, to prioritize better, right? To Smart 24 TV viewers, and all other Ugandans, I have some breaking news for you if you have not heard it anywhere, that today over 72% of our population is under the age of 35. Mark that. And if we go below 17, they are the majority of that 75%. Right? Let me also add this, that jobs will never be enough in this country for all Ugandans. Yeah. All right? Number 3, that Uganda does not exist in isolation. It is part of the bigger picture called the globe or the world. All right? That number 4, that companies, including universities, are currently buying land in something so many people have not even never heard of called the metaverse. Now, thinking about where the world is going, that companies, countries, universities are buying land in something called the metaverse. That is the virtual world.
Like the space.
From the space. From the world we live in to the virtual world. Now, the other one is that what we used to know as malls, other commercial rentals, time is coming when they will be abandoned and no one will want to rent them. Why? Because they can reach Dr. Joseph on their phone, they can reach Dr. Magola on his phone, Dr. Conan on his phone, reach all viewers on their phone. Another fact also in that breaking news package is the fact that the biggest computing power we have ever known, every young person has it in their pocket, and that's the phone. All right? Now, if we know all that, coming back to the child you talked about, and the suggestion he gave,
the future of that child,
and what Dr. Magola said of trying to understand if we can't incentivize everything, or not if we can't incentivize everything, but can we prioritize some things? Can we start now? Now that we know that the country will never have the budget to build all the schools that we need in terms of infrastructure. We know it's a fact now. And then I saw this paper, I think, where every sub-county is entitled to a government-aided school. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right? That's true. How many sub-counties do we have? Mm-hmm. So now, we know that that is not achievable in the foreseeable future. But there is one thing that we know that can be achieved. Mm-hmm. It is making sure internet infrastructure that produces high-speed internet reaches every corner of this country. That, if we had $100 million, $100 million, we can do that in this country.
$100 million.
$100 million, not billion.
$100 million, that's good money.
No, I think about it, how much money goes. The other day we had different government entities going to Parliament asking for money to teach people how not to be corrupt. Really? Who does that? And who approved that money? To teach you not to be corrupt?
You can't pump money in mindset change.
Like,
that's a joke.
I change. I'm not saying you're corrupt. God forbid, you should never even think about it. Yes. But how do you come and teach an adult like me to not be corrupt? Yet I know it is a sin. If you know the 10 Commandments, if you read the Bible, if you do anything, that touching money that is supposed to build a hospital is like murdering someone. It is. You can't be taught.
So the church should do their work.
Exactly. Let the people who are blessed by God to do their job, but don't waste money on teaching people how not to be corrupt. Mm. That's why we need an education that embraces morals, that then people grow up with such what? Morals. So $100 million, don't tell me that we can't get $100 million. When we can even consider having money to teach people on how not to be corrupt.
I agree with you.
Therefore, if we can prioritize, tweak our policies, and spread this internet to the last mile, that child somewhere, that means we are able to have high-speed internet there. We are able to now do blended learning. We are able to say, okay, if the trees are not permitting us because there's no sun to sit under the tree with our gadgets, please do it at home because you have internet and someone is going to help us coordinate all of this. Number one. Number two, if you have high-speed internet, and now we know the biggest cost driver or cost center of the Ministry of Education is teachers. Do you realize if you went digital, that you can even, and teachers don't hate me for this, you can even cut a number of teachers out of the system? Because at some point you can have very few great teachers, and not every teacher is good, very few great teachers, and you build a center in different parts of the country, and they deliver uniform education. Talk about equity. This time now, you're disseminating. He talked about the dissemination aspect. Equity education to everyone. Karamoja, Kanungu, Rwampara, Kaberamaido. You have a center, but you have kids that are tapping into this system.
Yes, you've mentioned that,
to
Doctor.
teach everyone.
Doctor.
Therefore, we have to tweak our policies. We have to incentivize things, subsidize things. We have to think about you remember what I packaged in the breaking news? Yes. That there are no more jobs that this country will have to fill everyone, that the world is going digital, we like it or not, so we have to train citizens to become the digital citizens of the 21st century. We have to handhold them to fit while others are buying space and land in the metaverse, in the virtual world. We should also get closer such that we are not locked out of the economy. We should stop having our people to be trained to work in Uganda because Uganda doesn't have all those jobs.
Thank you.
Digitally, we are able, if we train them, and they have all the digital literacies we want due to technology, they can work anywhere in the world without leaving Uganda.
I have a comment to make, sir, and I appreciate
Go for it.
I appreciate you so much. I see you with the vibe to make it happen.
But before you comment, you're going to say that this man is just a talker. He just talks. Now, this is what I tell again viewers. It is very hard for me to come in front of you, our dear viewers of Smart 24, to talk about things I have not started doing or we have not started doing. Yeah. At Victoria University, we are saying remove all the hindrances, the blockages, the roadblocks of learning, but be problem solvers, offer solutions. We have built. I wish we have Dr. Magogo.
So the accession
I want him to come and also visit us and you see we have built the largest classroom you can ever think of in Africa. The best learning management system now in Africa. As a teacher, you would sit in the comfort.
And the students' main hall. I visited it.
Yeah, you would sit in the comfort of your home and mark the scripts of your students without picking the scripts from, because they are not there. Access them on your iPad and provide a rich comment. When you read someone's answer, you are able to tell them how you feel about the answer they provided, then the grading you have given, and they can be able to access it in real time. You see the transparency that is coming in education. Now, moreover, the same system will allow every student, like the students we have from, now we are going to about 50 countries, tune in and study anytime without any interruptions. From the comfort of their sitting room, bedroom, wash areas if you want, restaurants, their jobs, access education. That is the world we are in now and where we are going, and we should embrace that. Policymakers pick a leaf, Ugandans pick a leaf. If your child, I want to emphasize this, if you're sending your child in any school, kindergarten, primary, secondary, university, and they are not exposed to technology, and technology is not embedded into what they learn on a daily basis. Other countries are learning coding now is a language. It's no longer just something as an entertainment. It's a language. The way we learn Luganda, English, Swahili, Chinese. It's a language to be spoken in the future. So if your children are not embedding technology in whatever they are learning, you just know that the education you paid for as an inheritance for your child, it is questionable.
And Doctor, if I add something, do you realize that the people we are serving in school right now, in 5 years, the complete market, the market formula, I mean the market working environment will have changed?
Correct.
The biggest problem that we educate children thinking they are coming to replace us the next day and they will find things the same way they are. I'm telling you, by the time my son graduates, you will do this show when he's on his farm. I don't even have to come to Smart 24 to actually sit here. And that's the reality of how the things are changing.
Yes,
they will
please.
stop hiring people who write stories. They hire people who analyze data. The consumers want to analyze data. They don't want your stories, written stories.
Science.
Data science.
We
Software
appreciate-
engineers.
We appreciate your
Data
brand.
analysts.
We appreciate your brand, and the date remains with you. I told you, please come up with our documentary, and people go into the in-depth of all that.
But you had a comment.
And
You had a comment.
You had a comment.
We distracted you from your
Ugandans
comment.
need to hear from you. You had a comment.
I had a comment, and it's basing on the realization of that. It's a dream, because we want to be real. We don't want to be like people are coming from heaven. Because when we are here and we look at this environment and things look to be as if, you know, someone outside there will say, these Go TV guys, do they know what I'm passing through in Karamoja? You know, now we are national. Me, who is in Ikisoro, who don't have power. You had already talked about that. But as we work on this, and you had already provided a policy proposal that there is, in terms even allocating the resources and making a policy review of how things should work, and again, making it deliberate for the ministry and for the parents outside there who are investing a lot of money in education. But there is, the other time, I don't want to call it the way one person I say, I called it education apartheid. Education apartheid, whereby social classes, and I will be coming now to you, Doctor, whereby, Dr. Magora, whereby all that we are talking seems to be good, these innovations, the education that maybe should be delivered, the teachers. But we are coming into a context, as a Ugandan who has gone into some areas, and equally you, to a percentage that I have not located here on my script, to those who can access these advantages, who still are demanding the infrastructure system. They are talking about how, you know, that's the electricity, the buildings, and also the nature of the policy, whether it's favorable. And the state of our economy, which you cannot go without talking about. 2 months ago, there was a serious concern. I think the publication of the news, it was on the first page, that 600,000 students had not registered for UNEB. And you know, when around 600 students miss in this chain of you know, examination assessment, it means a lot to Ugandans. The 600, if they miss a year. And under such circumstances, when we are a crisis, what do you think, Doctor, that Uganda should do in order to enable for creating enabling environment and actions that can help everyone, the poor and the rich, to access education?
Thank you very much for your question. But I would like, there's a comment you made before Dr. Mganga was answering.
It's where you can begin with that. And
you start with that one. You are talking about,
okay,
you are citing somebody, I forget the name, from IL, who was talking about
minimum wage. Yes, Joseph R. 2015.
And was saying minimum wage, you don't know whether it's linkable to the economy, to economic growth and things like that. But two, also I've had an argument here in Uganda on minimum wage. For a very long time, the highest person in the land, His Excellency the President, does not believe in minimum wage, says to drive our investors. It was passed by Parliament and it was not assented to. But I will tell you, this question was resolved by Henry Ford many years ago in 18-something. And he simply said he was a manufacturer of cars, and they are still there, the Ford vehicles. True. And said, if I do not pay my workers well, who will buy my cars?
If I don't pay my workers well, who will
buy my cars?
Equally in every area, if you don't.
In fact, these workers they live in what I call a duality. They are two in one. He's a worker whom we are paying less, but he's also a customer in the market.
Consumer.
So you need to increase his purchasing power.
So all this money, if you pay workers, it actually comes back to you.
Yeah.
Because they are not going to keep this money in the hall or in a port. They are going to go to the market. And when they go to the market, you tax them. So there's nothing to fear to give these people more money, because they are going to bring back the money to you.
Now that is economics.
I love the argument. That is economics with policy changes.
See, we have a policy argument saying, you see, this is money. there's no budget.
And these are the taxpayers.
And they are the customers, they are the taxpayers.
They pay VAT.
No, these are not people who have accounts in those tax havens.
Do you know how
Yes.
sorry for interrupting his presentation, but you know how many people have packed their cars home now? Their purchasing power, their ability to actually spend money is low because their income is low. No wonder when you're talking about having a low minimum wage and you can't put a minimum wage, you're actually affecting the ability to collect reasonable taxes.
Yeah, they actually cannot sit on the road when you are driving. The traffic jam is bad.
Yes, I know.
Yes, Dr. Peace, you still have the
Now,
floor.
I'm coming back to your, I thought we shouldn't lose that thing.
Yeah.
It was important, and I appreciate it.
We come back to your question, the question of, you said, somebody said the educational apartheid.
Yes, where we
But
got
I
class
think what is
difference.
important is prioritization. It is true. Right now, you even saw it during the lockdown, that some students were actually totally locked down for 2 years. They did not access any learning. At the same time, there are no schools which didn't close, which continued online. Teachers continued teaching, and they continued assessing students. And when they went back, this year started where they had stopped. So you can see that there is that divide. It might be a digital divide, but I alluded to some of the solutions in my earlier presentation, and you have also alluded to a solution. Is for us to do the talking, the walking than the talking. Because already we are very clear, it is very clear that if we have high-speed internet all over the country, the cost of accessing the internet will go down. But two, these solutions have already been worked out. Networks have already been proposed by different people. I've actually even been involved in one of the educational consortia, where we proposed having digital hubs where this content would be manufactured and delivered even to rural areas. You can use churches, you can use community halls at the Gombolo headquarters, you can use primary schools. If you have a mathematical wizard who is teaching in one of the schools in Kampala, he can deliver the same lesson to Kotido without leaving Kampala.
Thank you.
And so this opposite you are talking about will collapse.
Thank you.
Because you just need to identify, you said teachers may hate you. You just need to identify
I know.
very good mathematics teachers in
Exactly.
Uganda.
Yeah.
You locate them at different hubs, and you know that in West Nile is covered, the East is covered, the North, the Center is covered, and so on. And these 20 teachers deliver lessons to the whole country. Because the technology is there.
Right now, only 28 million people can access internet out of the 46 something. Really?
How can we enhance that one? Because
He has given you a solution.
He has already given a
it's a
solution.
solution. But the solution, anyway, you were proposing maybe
Yeah, and we are
your
saying-
idea will be picked up.
And we are
All
saying,
these are good statements, but the realization of it. You know, I'm a bit ambitious.
we are saying,
And like from here, we could want to see something
you
happen.
know why I love Smart 24? Why? Because they dedicated time this Saturday, this morning, to talk education and solve some problems in education, offer solutions. Now, the onus is on the public to pick what is happening. Because, look, we are talking about the same thing that we are not dreamers.
Yeah.
Dr. Magola knows what he's talking about can
Exactly.
work.
It can
what
work.
I'm talking about can work.
I agree.
I can tell you we have done that at our small scale at Victoria University for our students. Wherever you are, you can receive the same meaningful learning. Wherever you are in any part of Africa or world.
In fact, maybe to interject
Yes.
slightly,
No, go ahead.
is that right now, it is even cheaper, it is even easier now than it was. Because the older technology, people are thinking about satellite connections, where they would want to have some certain satellite dishes. You know, like we used to have these dishes for DSTV. They were talking of those dishes in different locations to serve a certain area.
The internet.
Right now, if you look at the who have been doing Zoom, Teams, and so on, the technology has changed. It is easier. What we would like to do, from a policy point of view, is to advise government to look at the internet infrastructure, not as a cost, but as an investment. Just like you look at roads. If you have a road from here to Nairobi or to Mombasa, you don't ask how much money the government is making from a road. It's the multiplier effect the road brings.
And we're talking about internet.
Even these airlines, Dubai, the Emirates, they are not looking at the revenue from their passengers.
Yes.
They are looking at the multiplier effect because Emirates runs the airport So the multiplier effect, all these threats which come in, the services they bring.
So the government should freely intervene in and
invest in the
internet.
internet. The multiplier effect will bring down all the cost of doing business. It will bring down the cost of education and all these things. And you'll find that you are deploying so many.
And find that the economic growth will be obvious.
You'll have fewer teachers. You'll pay them better. They will deliver quality, meaningful education, and everything will. Your apathy that your colleague you talked about was bringing will be no more. These things are doable. Yeah. It is an investment which over time, not even in the long run, because it's just in the mid-term, it will reduce education costs.
And talking about policies, there's something that has been perturbing me for a very long time. We are trying to help several young people actually get jobs. Doesn't it surprise you that government decided to switch off Facebook? They have their reasons. And I don't want to get into the reasons, but let's look at a very serious point of view. Do you know how many young people are selling their stuff on just internet? Do you know how many people would have been selling their produce on Facebook, talking about the things they're producing? Now, what platform have you left them to use? Twitter. How many people use Twitter? There are some of these logical, simple things people who make policies should sit and conceptualize. Like a simple thing we've been talking about for grade 3 teachers. It doesn't require rocket science. You don't need a Harvard graduate to tell you the calculation, the addition of the logic behind a cabinet. You don't need a cabinet sitting to do that. But you find that is very hard to change. As a country, we've got to really begin thinking for the common man.
For the common man.
Yes. For our country.
Thinking for our country.
For the real betterment of our country.
There are naturally some people who sit in certain offices in government and they don't seem to understand the same homes they come from, the same villages they are buried, because if you tell them we come from, some of them will never go back to villages. They don't even understand where they were born. But if you deeply think, and that's the difference we've created at Victoria University, is that you've got to put yourself in the shoes of a student or a parent standing in front of you and offer a solution. If you can't do that, then you're in the wrong country.
Let me ask you a question, and it is for of us. Who is the best teacher? Whom should we regard as the best teacher that can bring the socio-economic transformation to this country?
Well, you want to take on that?
Yeah, I will. So let me tell you. The word teacher, it cannot be monopolized by people who enter a classroom. Parents are teachers to their own children. People are teachers to other people. I learn everything from you. I've already learned so much from Dr. Magola, even after meeting him for the first time. So teachers are teachers and can be found everywhere. But when you talk about the professional teacher, is the second parent after the primary parent, right? Therefore, for me, a good teacher is anyone who has the interest of the good interest of the country first. Because if you have the good interest of the country you live in and the world you live in, you're going to instill everything great in this child. And if you do that to this child, the multiplier effect, the positive ripple effect, those are the fruits that are going to be harvested from everyone who has gone through your hands. Give them decent quality education, real education, creative education. Allow them to imagine the world and they create it. Allow them to innovate and see their innovation through. So if you are able to do that as a teacher, that means you wish good your own country. And then you will be the best teacher. But getting also that teacher comes back to what Dr. Magola said. We have to remember that there is a chance that this teacher has a child who is going to school without lunch. Maybe they are even indebted, they haven't paid fees for their own children. Maybe they have a mortgage that they have to pay. They are human beings like everyone. So we have to also pay attention to what makes them do their job. You cannot tell a teacher who you're paying 500,000, for example, to go in a market that is so inflated. That means the pay doesn't match what they are going to pick in the market. How do we compensate that gap? How do we keep their head above water? How do we may not even make them thrive, but how do we make them, support them to survive, right? So before you talk about who is a good teacher,
How to make a good
we also need to ask, how do we make a good teacher?
Exactly.
You
And you've said it well.
You talked about how to make a good teacher.
Yeah, we have to make a very good teacher. And in addition to what he said it actually very well. He has been at Harvard. He knows, he has been behind the concept of authentic learning. He understands what we are talking about. But also very important to note, and rightly I've learned this from him, if you have a teacher who cannot create an impact in a child you are actually educating. I have a very young boy, my son. But one of the things I watch every day in him is not what is in his book. It's the things he does, how he talks to me. And when I don't see a change, I tell the mom, you know what? That's a mistake. This school is the wrong school for our son. I just have to watch the impact that you've fed, he rightly put it, the impact you feed into a child. Doesn't it surprise you that people can graduate and they don't have jobs? Doesn't it surprise you that someone gets a degree, a first-class degree, and he can't write a simple project paper? He can't even write a proposal for a job or even a contract of a business. He can't even start an egg-selling business in his village. When they get so many eggs and they can't sell them, they eat the eggs. I was in Nibanda. They have so much milk that they collect the milk. And guess what they do with the milk? They take part of the milk because they can't sell it. They don't have a good market. They can't transport the milk. And then at the end of the day, the milk, they give it to animals to take it, especially like the goats and the rest. And if they can't take all the milk, they pour some of the milk because it gets bad. That's a shame. Why do you graduate with a bachelor's degree from any university, go back home and sit and you have no simple solution for that milk? But don't blame the students so much. The kind of education we give them is what takes them to that point.
And just a small point about the best teachers or the good teacher is to rotate around an additional point around the question where we said this is about being student-centered. So a teacher who creates that environment where a student takes the lead in learning is a good one, because it is very difficult to unlearn the old method. Many times a teacher, even if the system, the university or the secondary school defines that students should take the charge of learning and should be a facilitator, there is always that tendency to backslide into the lecturing mode.
Yes.
And the teacher takes over again.
You know,
so to unlearn and you're able to create that environment and the students lead all the time,
yes,
then you have become a good.
And actually related to that, if you could allow me, you know, when Dr. Mganga took over Victoria University, there's one thing he kept telling people when we are doing, we write our curriculum, which you send to National Council for Education to pass. He was saying that, look, we can actually have exams at 30%. And then practical learning, authentic learning, where you go work with the real world of work. We scored it and award you and take 70%. Guys were looking at us and said, that's horrible. That has never happened anywhere. But he said, that's the problem of education. Who tells you that I should have an exam that takes 70% and a real practical learning should take only 30%? Now, we have some of our courses approved by National Council for Education, where you take 30% on exam and 70% is through practical learning. Not mere coursework where you write things and send in and they mark you and you go. It's the practical learning where you are scored from the real world of work. You get to graduate with 3 years of your studying in class, but also 2 years of experience in the real world.
I want to first bring this, this part of the central climax of our debate, and which is commonly witnessed here in Uganda. It's an event matter, especially during when they are admitting students, especially secondary school. And in most cases, the new vision comes up. These media, newspapers, and they published, they say, the first 20 best secondary schools. And even it reaches as far as the universities.
Yeah.
Top 20.
Top
They say
20.
the first top 20. And
I have been behind the ranking.
in this ranking, as we are climaxing our discussion, because at times our parents outside there, the students and those who are still, agitating to have the best education, they tend to look at your statistics. But the gist of the matter, to know what does it take to the ranking you come up with, is never realized properly. And including myself, when I landed on it, because I was projecting on maybe next time where should I take my child. So you go and Google and say the first 20, maybe I just choose among these ones. But for purpose of understanding, to enable our parents to make rightful choices. And these rightful choices, they are tagged even with a lot of high pay. And another problem that I would like to bring in this a bit is SWOT analysis in our state of education, especially those who are delivering the service. There are those schools which were government-founded schools, secondary. And most of them, they are no longer among the first 20. And during our days, they were referred as first world schools. Please, it's a paradox, but it needs to be settled down.
Allow me to say something on that.
Yes, you get 3 minutes and we go also doctor and then we come back here.
And the reality about education, have you ever understood the concept of living under siege? Abaganda bakoyita kuwambibwa.
He's a journalist. They were celebrating journalism under siege.
Yes, the journalism under
So let him tell us, because it is confusing people.
I'm telling you, our parents are living under siege. Ng'oli mu buwambe obuwambe obwenjigiriza. And you don't have an option, by the way. Luckily now you have universities that can boldly tell you we have different kind of education. That's why some of us, we believe in a dream and work day and night to make sure certain dreams come true. Really, you get to a point where you feel you're under siege. You must take your child to a school where it is D1, D2, and that's what they care so much about. We had schools, big schools, brother schools of instruction, you know them, brother of Christian instruction, which had farms. I
went to one.
Exactly. Exactly. They had a big farm where they would teach you how to milk, take you on the farm to know how to grow matoke and the rest. For God's sake, those things are not captured in the normal education system. Thank God that under this country's education system now, you have the First Lady and the Minister of Education. She's a deep think about Uganda's quality of education. No wonder she has been behind the masterminding of a new curriculum, which is the lower secondary curriculum, where they're going to score students on their ability to offer whatever they do with their hands. It's going to be part of what they're going to contribute on their national examination. So it will end the kind of mess we've been in, where students only have to call for D1, D2, D3 as a way to assess their performance.
So they're going to come out of the captivity.
No, it's not enough.
It's not enough, but it's a good, it's not enough.
It's a good start.
It's a good start, and she needs me and you to support her to make that transformation. And we must be very intentional. You remember the small incrementals we talked about? Never forget the small incrementals. To make that change, it was me and you to do things where people think those guys are mad. But that's the change.
Thank you.
My experience teaching at a university
Yes, sir.
for over 20 years.
Don't forget the issue of ranking is a bit
That's the thing I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
This ranking is false.
It is false.
It's a false
It's
ranking.
terrible.
What happens is, as you said, people are captured and students are pumped.
It's a state of capture.
They are pumped with in quotes knowledge, how to pass exams.
Yes.
That's what they are pumped with, and what they want is grades. And then you take the market, because you see, if you have many people with D's and so on, then parents pour their children, they didn't increase the fees. It's now both economic and extortionist. But if you go to university, and I've taught university for more than 20 years, you will find that these grades don't count at university.
They don't count.
These students reach university and collapse because they don't know how to read for themselves. They don't know how to do research or to find their own information. You find a student who has come from Kibuku, from where is the one reading
the hustler.
Who suffered?
To get that score.
For the information, he must to pass exams.
That's when our theory
So
comes
you are
true.
encouraging parents outside there not to be intimidated
Not to
with
be intimidated
with
by
the
these
ranking
things.
of our great, you know.
I came from a rural school, but people who studied with me know. I would challenge them when they came with their D1s and the Makerere.
Before I leave you, Doctor, you have been an advocate for the welfare of teachers and basically the professionals in the line of the academia education. And we have agreed that yes, all that, which is a sense of motivation, it contributes to a better, you know, education system, thereby stirring up progress of the education sector. But a lot is still desirable. Has caused this and kindly.
No, this is a very simple thing.
Yes,
actually, National Council for Higher Education, one of their quality assessment, when they are looking at the assessment of quality of a university, one of the parameters is whether the staff have unions, have joined unions. Is a parameter. Because the assumption is that unions will improve the working environment and the employee relations within a certain institution. But there is a genesis why universities are very difficult to unionize. Because I've been in this for almost since 2010, for more than 10 years. But they are very difficult to unionize. Why? Because of the belief of what unions are. They are looking at them as trade unions. Mark the difference. As trade unions. Whereas right now we don't have trade unions, we have labor unions. Now I will explain the difference. In the past, you had to have a trade in order to join a union. And a trade would be either you're a carpenter, you're a plumber, you're a blacksmith, you know, something you do using your hands. In order for you to join what is called a trade union. So there would be a trade union for carpenters, a trade union for blacksmiths, a trade union for plumbers, and so on. But this one did not consider intellectual labor. It only considered manual labor. But this carpenter has both intellectual and manual. Now, in 1995, the 1995 Constitution, and in fact the law then before 1995 prohibited intellectuals from joining trade unions. So if you're an intellectual and you join, intellectuals would join as officers.
Exactly.
So if you're an officer, you are not supposed to join a trade union because it was people below officers. So in the universities, you'd find it is cleaners and other support staff, cooks and so on, who would form a union. And they joined what is called NUWEI, National Union of Educational Institutions. 1995 redefined this, and instead of trade unions, there's a provision for labor unions. And argue that every worker who provides labor, be it manual or intellectual, can join a labor union of his choice. And all people have, under economic rights in the Constitution, have a right to join a labor union. Then the law that followed that in 2006, the Labor Unions Act, is not a Trade Unions Act, it's a Labor Unions Act. And when it listed who joins a union, it included intellectual labor. But it's also labor. And so therefore, intellectuals now can join trade unions. And that's why, labor unions rather, that's why teachers now joined, starting with UNATU. Now there are various teachers unions. Medical workers joined, including medical doctors. And academic people joined using the University Professional and Academic Staff Union. But that thinking that unions are for trade, people who have get trade, therefore the lower cadre still lingers on in the minds of
Why don't universities are not
no, they are two.
They seem not to be welcoming them.
Yes, there are two.
They contribute to research, they contribute to progress.
Yes, and then secondly, before I come to that particular point, is that therefore these labor unions are not only for including salary. If you look at the things listed there in the law, they negotiate policy, they negotiate wages if you want or salary, they negotiate working environment. If there's any change in structure, they are supposed to participate. So you don't just restructure and they don't know how it came. In the universities, they are supposed to do research and they can have conferences and disseminate their research findings and so on. They can affiliate with other bodies for partnerships and come up. Now, lastly, on the failure for not being welcomed, the resistance is on two fronts. One is by management, who think these are going to bring disruption, which is not the case. But also, the people themselves who are supposed to be unionized, have that mentality lingering on as if
That's only salary.
it's for lower cadre.
For lower cadre.
And therefore they're above unions. That mentality is the one which is there. That only people maybe in sugarcane cutting, in sweeping, in such areas. I don't want to join unions.
And social stability, and then thereby progress.
I think for me, my conclusion would be that we need to continue the conversation. We need to think outside the box. We need to prioritize, because many times when we talk of, for example, we have identified through our conversation here, all of us, we have centered on technology as central for enhancing our education advancement. So if we can prioritize the internet in our educational budgets to ensure that we look at internet like we look at the standard gauge railway, like we looked at Uganda Airlines. Uganda Airlines was not looked at because it's going to make a profit, but we looked at it like you would see a road. If there are potholes in a road to Mombasa, when you are repairing them, you don't know when you will break even. No, you repair it because it's a road, it has multiplier effect. There are so many goods that come on through that road. Similarly with the internet. So if we can converge that way and prioritize, I think we can make a great leap forward.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Next time when we invite you, please kindly come. We want to have a better Uganda that is progressing in the education sector. Yeah. You please welcome to give us your final input. And
thank you very much, Dr. Tindiewa, and the viewers, and my colleagues from Conan to Dr. Magola. But there's something important you asked us. The ranking of schools, I want to end with that.
Okay, that's right.
Like my colleagues, that's the worst ranking, dear parents and any student out there who will ever become a parent. It is a false ranking. All right? Just it is, you can consider two worlds. One which is artificial and the real life world. So what you see as ranked is that lives in the artificial world. If you want to prove that it is artificial, you have gone through primary education. Now I want you, if you're a parent, to look at yourself in a mirror and ask yourself, if you have to face your P5, primary 5 going child, what would you advise them to remember while they are in primary 5, to remember that they should not miss that aspect because it has helped you in your life? What would you advise them to remember in what you studied in P7 that they should not miss while they are growing up to become adults? If the answer is that there is nothing you want to advise them to remember and they should never miss, then we were actually robbed of our own passions, our own natural abilities, our own interests. So because that is the place, the education we have today, the one-fits-all model, or one-fit-all model, that's the place where dreams, imaginative power, creativity, passion, interests, that's where they die from and we bury them from there. In a place called school. Therefore, you see the best 20, when they tell you the best 20 schools. So when they tell you that, remember what they have based on. They have based on what Conan said, the D1s, the A's. But remember what is a D1. What is a D1 is that after your child goes through primary into P7, they will make them sit in a room for 2 hours to remember what they studied in the last 7 years. Where in the world is that possible? Where do you do it in your real life? In other words, they are encouraging cramming things in one's head, but not practice. Yet the world needs them to practice something. Remember I said here, I remember very well, that what the brain thinks about, it is better understood if the hands also hold it. Therefore, whatever you don't practice, you can't know. And the world we live in today, the employers are not looking for so much of what we know because the knowledge is here. But the employers are looking for what we can do with our own hands to solve problems. But our education, ladies and gentlemen, here are the deficiencies you should look for that are not there. And if you can change those and find a school that offers your child that, not a ranked school, because those rankings based on exams, and exams don't define one's future. They actually define how much fees will that school charge next term. Exactly. Not the future of that person. Look for a school that is not characterized by, which encourages personalized learning, that puts a child at the center of everything they are doing to develop their imaginative power, their creativity, their hands-on experience, such that when they get out, they can remember something they did, even after 20 years. But if a school is suffering from technology deficiencies, the world we live in today, and that one that is supposed to come, requires us to have digital literacies. If your child or your student is not exposed to that, and the school is not providing that, run away from that school. The other one is experiential learning, learning by doing. I'm glad that the Ministry of Education, and thank you, Honorable Minister of Education, that you are championing CBE, competence-based educational learning. I was so happy to see senior 2 students now learning tailoring. Mm-hmm. And the DIT, I think, DIT will also offer them certificates for doing that. Yeah. Trust me, now that child can drop out of school, but can still become the best Gucci's, the best designers of this world. They know how to do something.
Is it across the country?
Now that's what we want to happen. Mm-hmm. That's now real education. Any school that is encouraging the remembering syndrome, that remember everything the teacher has given you, if you don't give them 100%, you are a failure. Now, top-ranking schools, that kind of thinking promotes failure. It means if you are not getting 100%, you have failed. You have children, I have children, we have children, viewers have children. Who gives birth to a failed child? No one. Okay, everyone gives birth to a child full of dreams, hope, potential, amazing. Those kids that have potential that will be tapped to change the world. But do you know what fails them? School. Yeah. The education system that thinks that your child, my child, Dr. Magola's child, Conan's child, the viewer's child are the same. They think the same way, they eat the same food, they fall sick on the same day, they should be subjected to one exam, they should be subjected to one teacher, teaches them the same content, but when they go to the real world, it treats them differently. We should educate differently. This is a pandemic we call education, and we should change it as soon as yesterday.
Thank you, dear viewers, for staying on Smart 24 TV, and it has been a great weekend. We continue to discuss the socioeconomic policies that can contribute to a transformational society. And I would like to appreciate all our dear guests who honored our invitation. Education is the key to the country's economic growth, and we do encourage the stakeholders, policy stakeholders over there, owners of secondary schools, universities, some who happens even either not to have gone into the in-depth understanding of the concept of education, especially to ensure that the new innovation and the adapted new innovative ideas that can promote education can make a change for our country, Uganda. See you next time. We are still live on Smart 24 TV, Go TV channel 394, and this is a station you can always be able to benefit through informative and teachings that can enable us to be a better country. Stay in. Goodbye.